What I'm talking about first off is something that's very common now in video games, especially when it sits around sort of E3 time, and that's to do with hype and the way people buy into the hype meter, and then nearly always end up being disappointing with the game, that is. Now, I can somewhat understand this because I'll admit I bought into the hype of Halo 3. I didn't really like Halo 1, I didn't like Halo 2, thought the campaign was nothing special, the characters were paper thin, and it was all just a bit samey. But I've got to say, it was the adverts that got me for Halo 3. The adverts were epic, I've got to admit that. And the build up, I mean, it was being touted as the greatest game ever created, and I find it hard to believe people that say they didn't buy into the hype of Halo 3. That's not to say I was expecting the greatest game ever created, but when Halo 3 did actually hit, it was disappointing. Visually, it wasn't the best. It played well, sure, but I was never a big fan of regenerating health and having the shield to protect you. I also wasn't a big fan of how high you could jump. I thought it was ridiculous. And other gripes mainly concerned again with the story and the rabid fanboys that there is for the Halo franchise. What I did like was the co-op and multiplayer. Yeah, co-op and multiplayer were probably the best features. But I'm going a bit off the topic here. Anyway, so hype. Most recently, Red Dead Redemption got huge hype, and it was odd because people just seemed to forget about the game until about a month before it was released, and that's when the hype really kicked in. And I really think people started to expect too much from it. People used to call it a Grand Theft Auto horse, which is a little bit dismissive and a little bit silly, to be honest. It's what I like to think of it as people with narrow minds with nothing much to say in the game. Let's face it, Red Dead Redemption is not Grand Theft Auto 4 with horses. But I'm just keep talking about the hype here. So the hype, it got higher and higher and higher, got more intense. The average started rolling out, which of course gets more attention from people that don't really follow games that often. And when the game came out, it got high marks. I mean, it was getting 10s and 9s across the board, and I don't think that helped the game really that well, because there's quite a lot of people that have got this little backlash against it now, saying it's quite dull. And in some respects it is, but you've got to remember, if games are getting hyped up that much, people are going to expect the game to be 100% perfect, non-stop action. Pardon me, non-stop action, non-stop perfection, and it's a bit unfair to expect that from a developer. It's like a film. I don't care if you find the perfect film, there will be parts in that film where you feel a little bit bored or it's a little bit slow. That applies to any version of media. Games, books, film, TV, music in some cases. And I really think people need to stop buying into the hype so much. Now, for example, games that I like quite a lot, which didn't get that much hype, this kind of managed to appear and disappear and hide beneath the radar from the hype. And I think the best case of that is either Shadow of the Colossus or Ico. For Ico is probably better, because after Ico everyone was looking at the next game which they were going to develop, which was obviously Shadow of the Colossus, and the hype began for that. But I think that game managed to just show that gaming can be art, games can be art. But one game that did the disappearing act very well was Resident Evil 4. It got shown a few times, the plot ideas got shown a few times, and then it got reworked. It had to be, I think it was redesigned twice, with one of them being a paranormal version where Leon was like fighting an entity, like a ghost entity. People didn't really like that much. Anyway, so Resident Evil 4 appeared a few times and the hype began pounding, getting more intense, and then it just disappeared. And when it actually did come out, everyone was shocked at how good the game was. I mean, people seem to have forgot about Resident Evil 4. It just appeared, it blew everyone's socks off, and it was, I can honestly hand and heart say it was probably one of the best games on the GameCube. Now I know there's a lot of purists out there who'll say, no it's not, this is such and such, but for me I thought this was probably one of the best games on the GameCube. I played this only on the GameCube, not on the PS2 version, so I can't really comment on that. I will have to pick that up at some point in the future, but not quite now. But my point is, if you go into a game without high expectations, you are more likely to enjoy the game a hell of a lot more. If you go into a game with ridiculously high expectations, maybe because you've bought into hype, maybe because you're easily influenced by the media who proclaiming the game to be the greatest ever, or maybe just because you're a bit of a fanboy. I mean, let's face it, there is quite a lot of fanboys out there. Most now are particularly console fanboys, but when it comes to franchises, I don't think you'll find fiercer fanboys anywhere in the world than there is in Halo. I mean, Jesus, then they will rip you apart on forums for seeing the slightest valid point, may I point out, about Halo 3, Halo 2, Halo Wars. So yeah, that's really my message going about E3 coming soon. Don't buy into the hype, just play your games with moderate expectations. Don't expect these fantastical works of perfection. So yeah.